In 2011, Zach Snyder's stylish, violent Sucker Punch hit theaters and introduced audiences to a cast of butt-stomping young ladies in leather. With a steampunk sensibility and complex fantasy inside a dream narrative and memorable performances from a cast of up-and-comers, it was one of the most unique films of the year, even if critics kinda hated it. But what happened to Baby Doll and her friends after the camera stopped rolling? Here's where they all ended up. Emily Browning. Some folks thought that Sucker Punch would catapult Emily Browning to A-list superstar status, but her career trajectory was still just as oddball and eclectic as ever. Turns out a typical Hollywood trajectory is the last thing on her mind. She's been very picky about when and where she shows up on screen since Sucker Punch. Her most mainstream role in the past 5 years was in the historical disaster flick Pompeii, but her bread and butter is the foreign and festival circuit, where she turns up in movies that most mainstream audiences will never even hear about, let alone see in theaters. As of 2017, you're most likely to catch her on the small screen, where she scored a prime role in the Starz adaptation of Neil Gaiman's American Gods. She's also kept a low profile in real life, dating a guy much less famous than she is and running an eclectic Instagram account that is as un-Hollywood as they come. Vanessa Hudgens. Sucker Punch was a big move away from Vanessa Hudgens' Disney roots, and she kept moving in the same direction with follow-up roles in Spring Breakers and Gimme Shelter. However, Hudgens clearly hasn't gotten the musical theatre gig entirely out of her system. A few years after a gunslinging, grenade-throwing turn as Blondie, she was back to belting ballads as Betty Rizzo on Grease Live. More recently, she's enjoyed a starring role on primetime TV comedy Powerless, where she plays an employee at Wayne Security, developing products to keep people safe during destructive superhero battles. She also keeps up with fans on Instagram, because of course she does. Abbie Cornish. You gotta love Abbie Cornish's capacity for reinvention. Before Sucker Punch, she was known primarily as the leading lady of the period romance Bright Star. But just as Cornish refused to be pigeonholed into a corseted career after that, she also kept it interesting and unusual after a leather-clad turn in Sucker Punch. She's starring in Geostorm, an action flick with Gerard Butler, working with megastars Woody Harrelson and Frances McDormand on a dark comedy, and speaking out in an eloquent defense of the controversial film Where Hands Touch. And that's not all. Cornish is also known to occasionally take a break from her acting life to spit rhymes in his second career as a rapper. Yeah, really.
Spin this, hoping that I'll win this, shameless, blameless, all up in this. Just got the stars as a witness, hit this like I'm gonna miss this, wishing.
Jena Malone. By the time she scored a role in Sucker Punch, Jena Malone had been acting for ages and she didn't slow down afterward. In 2012, she traded a leather bustier for a long skirt and high-necked blouse on the period TV drama Hatfields and McCoys. The following year, she joined the cast of The Hunger Games, Catching Fire as Joanna Mason. Malone reteamed with Sucker Punch director Zach Snyder in 2016 for Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, but her scenes as Janet Clyburn were deleted from the theatrical release. Lately though, Malone is less involved in Hollywood and more interested in her new roles as a mum, a photographer, and a writer. The actress gave birth to her first child with fiancé Ethan De Lorenzo in May 2016, and now she shares thoughts, poetries, and photos on a blog called Our Mountain Family. That's a long way from gunning down bad guys. Jamie Chung. Scoring a role in Sucker Punch was a major coup for Jamie Chung, who got her start on MTV's The Real World and used the show as a launchpad into a legit acting career. Since 2011, you're most likely to have seen her in repeat appearances on Once Upon a Time, where she plays the role of Mulan, or heard her in the role of Go-Go in Big Hero 6, which she'll be reprising for the TV series too. And Chung hasn't left the action realm behind. She's been cast as the teleporting mutant Blink in Fox's new X-Men series. Carla Gugino. After playing a therapist/dance madam in Sucker Punch, Carla Gugino hasn't lost her taste for the dark and weird. Since then, she's held down major roles in Wayward Pines and Californication, and she's even teamed up with director Zach Snyder for a third and fourth time, lending a voice to a Kryptonian robot and then a Kryptonian spaceship in his Superman films. As of 2017, she's starring in the sci-fi spectacle The Space Between Us and a feature film adaptation of the Stephen King novel Gerald's Game. Oscar Isaac. Between Ex Machina, X-Men Apocalypse, and Star Wars The Force Awakens, you can't go to the movies these days without seeing Oscar Isaac in some form or another, which makes him the one member of Snyder's Sucker Punch cast who's exponentially more famous now than he was in 2011. Isaac was right at the start of his career when he scored a minor role in Sucker Punch. Now he's one of the hottest actors in Hollywood, with half of a dozen prestigious projects coming down the pike. But perhaps because he's got so mega famous so fast, Isaac keeps a comparatively low profile in real life. He's so secretive about his private life that there's practically an entire cottage industry dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of how he spends his time when he's not on screen. Jon Hamm. Though he kept busy with Mad Men for most of the early 2000s, Jon Hamm was never so busy that he couldn't take a moment between seasons to show up in a movie or two, and in Sucker Punch he played a small but pivotal role. In one narrative, he's the brothel's smarmy VIP client. In the other, he's the asylum doctor who lobotomizes helpless young ladies with a stainless steel awl. Needless to say, Jon Hamm didn't disappear after Sucker Punch. He continued for another several years on Mad Men, winning a Golden Globe and an Emmy for his performance as Don Draper. Not that it's all been sunshine and daisies for Hamm in the intervening years. His longtime relationship with Jennifer Westfeldt ended in 2015, just a few months after Hamm announced that he'd entered rehab for alcohol addiction. But he's still as sought after as ever. Next up, look for him in Edgar Wright's hotly anticipated heist flick, Baby Driver. Scott Glenn. There's just something about Scott Glenn that says grizzled badass, which is why after appearing as Baby Doll's pseudo-spirit guide in Sucker Punch, he's since gone on to play virtually the same role in the Netflix series Daredevil, only minus his eyesight and plus a very big stick. Glenn is as tough off-screen as the characters he plays. The dude is approaching 80 and still trains with SEAL Team 6 to stay in shape for his roles. And when he's not making a movie or TV show, he's a die-hard thrill seeker. If he's not on camera, you'll probably find him riding motorcycles, jumping out of planes, or spearfishing in the middle of the open ocean. When you're beating up fish with your bare hands, you know you've made it. Thanks for watching. Click the looper icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.